On Mike Russo's desk, there was only one photograph, a picture of his deceased wife, Maria. His co-workers thought he was quiet and withdrawn because of his grief, but today, they learned the truth. Maria was an FBI agent who had been assassinated. Mike's janitorial work for the past 20 years was just a cover. His real mission was to bring his wife's killers to justice. And today, that justice had finally been served. I wonder where you're watching this story from today. Don't forget to write which city you're watching from in the comments. Whether you're from the bustling streets of New York or the quiet towns of Texas, you've probably seen someone being misjudged before, but you've never seen someone with such a long-running, deeply hidden secret. This isn't just a revenge story. It's a 20-year struggle of love, loyalty, and justice. Mike Russo was born in 1975, an Italian-American of Sicilian descent. He grew up in Queens, New York, where both his father and grandfather had been police officers. Little Mike was raised listening to the justice stories his father told every evening when he came home. Justice sometimes comes late, son, his father would say, but it always comes. Mike's childhood was shaped by the discipline of a police family. He would wake up at 6 a.m. and deliver newspapers before going to school. During these early hours, he would report any strange activities he saw in the neighborhood to his father, who would praise him. "You're a natural-born detective, Mike," he would say proudly. While studying criminology at university, he specialized particularly in organized crime. After graduating magna cum laude, he applied to the FBI in 1997. The selection process was tough, but Mike's analytical intelligence and patient character impressed the evaluator. In his early years at the FBI working routine cases, Mike quickly caught attention. His ability to draw big conclusions from small clues made him special. His analytical intelligence, attention to detail, and patient character made him an ideal candidate for special operations. But the real change came in 2001, when he met Maria Santos. Maria Santos was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Her father was a bank manager, and her mother was a mathematics teacher. From an early age, Maria had a good relationship with numbers and showed natural talent in financial crimes. At the University of Puerto Rico, she double majored in mathematics and economics, while also speaking Spanish, English, and French fluently. She wrote her graduation thesis on Caribbean money laundering networks, which caught the FBI's attention. Maria joined the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit in 1999 and rose quickly. She managed to track money laundering operations from Russian mafia to Italian organized crime groups. She had become legendary in tracking money flows in computer systems. At the FBI Academy, they said about Maria, "Numbers speak to her." Indeed, Maria could solve the structure of crime organizations by looking at complex financial files. Mike and Maria's paths crossed in the summer of 2001 during an international money laundering case. Mike brought information gathered from the field, while Maria analyzed it. Initially, it was just a professional working relationship. Their first conversation took place in an FBI cafeteria. Mike had seen the complex charts on Maria's desk and asked, "What do these numbers mean?" Maria had laughed. "These numbers tell us who sent how much money to whom, and when. But more importantly, they also show why they sent it." Mike was enchanted, not just by Maria's beauty, but by her intelligence. As he got to know her closely, he saw Maria's passion for her work. Every case was a personal challenge for her. A strong bond formed between them. Both were workaholics. Both believed in justice. They would stay at the office until late at night working on cases. During these work sessions, they got to know each other. In the fall of 2002, Mike proposed to Maria. But this wasn't an ordinary proposal. In the FBI's Financial Crimes Department, at Maria's favorite computer terminal, this message appeared on the screen. "Maria Santos, will you marry me, Namor?" Maria first thought it was a virus. Then she turned around to see Mike kneeling with a ring in his hand. Everyone in the FBI office applauded. "This is the most romantic cyber attack," Maria said with tears in her eyes. They married in 2003. Their wedding was filled with FBI agents, police officers, and justice officials. Having both spouses work for the FBI was a rare situation, but both loved their jobs deeply. They even cancelled their honeymoon to focus on an important case. "It's our life," Maria had said, "but it's also our duty. Mike and Maria's dream was to solve a major case and make FBI history. Working together, they would form a perfect team both professionally and personally. This dream began to materialize in 2004. In the summer of 2004, the FBI's New York office received a tip about Fortuna Construction Company. The informant claimed the company wasn't just constructing buildings, it was actually the center of a large-scale money laundering operation. Initial investigations suggested the tip might be accurate. Fortuna Construction had been operating in Manhattan since 1985, appearing to be a successful company. But when financial records were examined, strange details emerged. The company's owner, Vincent "Vinny" Torino, was a businessman who had immigrated from Italy to America. On paper he looked clean, but FBI intelligence reports indicated connections to the Sicilian mafia. More importantly, the company had shown abnormal growth over the past 10 years. When Maria began analyzing this case, she discovered a complex network. Fortuna Construction was part of an international money laundering network, with operations not just in America, but also in Italy, Spain, and even Turkey. Millions of dollars were being laundered monthly through fake construction projects. This case was Maria's biggest career opportunity. If they could bring down this network, they would achieve one of the FBI's greatest successes. In early 2005, the FBI launched the Fortuna operation. The plan was complex. An agent would be infiltrated into the organization, would wait for years, and after learning all the details of the network, would make their move. Mike volunteered for this operation. His Italian heritage, New York accent, and basic knowledge of construction made him the ideal candidate. But FBI management thought this operation was too risky, because if Mike's identity was discovered, not only the operation, but his life would be in danger. Maria didn't want her husband to take this risk, but Mike was determined. "This is our chance," he insisted. "If we can bring down this network, we'll prevent thousands of innocent people from becoming victims of money laundering." Work began at the FBI's secret identity laboratory at Quantica. This laboratory was a special unit that completely changed agents' identities. Mike's transformation took months. First came the physical change. His hair was cut differently. Facial features were altered with light makeup. His posture, walk, and hand movements were all trained. He would no longer be the straight-backed FBI agent, but a worker with slumped shoulders and tired appearance. Language training was the hardest part. Mike already knew Italian, but he needed to perfect the Sicilian dialect. He also needed to corrupt his English and imitate a foreign accent. He worked with voice technicians for days. Character rehearsals were conducted. Mike was tested with his new identity in different scenarios. He had fake interviews with FBI actors. Each time, he tried to get a little better. Most importantly, his background story was written. Mike Russo was now a lonely worker who had immigrated from Sicily 5 years ago with no family. Every detail of this story had to be memorized. He received janitorial training. He took lessons from real janitors. He learned which materials to use and how in what order to clean, because he would actually be cleaning for 20 years. Maria supported her husband during this process, but was very worried. 20 years is too long, she objected. Everything can change during this time. Mike was determined. "Maria, this is our chance to make FBI history. If we succeed, no crime organization will feel safe." After months of preparation, Mike Russo's identity was changed. He was now a recent immigrant from Italy, with limited English, and a simple worker. His past, personality, even his speech patterns were completely altered. The FBI's identity transformation specialists had made Mike unrecognizable. In the fall of 2005, Mike applied to Fortuna Construction as a janitor. The interview was very simple. Vincent Torino's assistant found Mike ideal because of his poor English and quiet character. "Silent janitors are the best," the assistant said. "The talkative ones cause problems." Mike was hired, and thus began one of the longest undercover operations in FBI history. Mike's first months at Fortuna Construction were challenging. Every day he would arrive at work at 6 a.m. and clean until 6 p.m. He had to be careful never to forget his real identity while also not arousing suspicion. When he found his first opportunity, he began learning the building's layout. Fortuna Construction occupied an entire 25-story skyscraper in Manhattan. Each floor was designated for different departments: construction projects, accounting, sales, marketing. But Mike focused his attention on the 20th floor. This floor was a special area that only senior executives could enter. It couldn't be accessed without security cards and had very strict security measures. Mike suspected this was the center of the money laundering operations. The advantage of being a janitor was having permission to enter everywhere in the building, but the 20th floor required special authorization, and Mike didn't have such clearance yet. Throughout the first year, Mike only observed. He tried to get to know the employees, learning which departments handled which operations. He befriended the night shift security guards. Gradually, he was gaining trust. The most difficult part was the psychological pressure. Every day Mike had to suppress his real personality and become someone else. At home he would practice his fake accent with Maria. Some nights he would forget to drop the act even at home. "Sometimes I don't know which Mike is real anymore," he confessed to Maria one evening. Maria would hold his hand tightly. "The real Mike is the one fighting for justice. Never forget that." During this period, Maria tracked the financial side of the operation. She analyzed reports from Mike and mapped money flow. Every month, secret meetings were held at the couple's home to evaluate the operation's progress. These meetings were held with extreme caution. FBI supervisors would come to their Queens home late at night. The curtains were always drawn. Voices kept low. Maria would prepare detailed financial analysis charts while Mike reported his observations. As months passed, Mike began forming relationships with Fortuna employees. This was necessary for the operation, but also emotionally draining. He had to pretend to like people who were unknowingly part of a criminal organization. Carlos Rivera, the night shift security guard, became Mike's closest acquaintance. Carlos was a Puerto Rican immigrant, like Maria, honest and hard-working. He trusted Mike and often shared his life stories during long night hours. "You're a good listener, Mike," Carlos would say. "Most people don't care about us night workers." Mike felt guilty. Carlos was a good man who knew nothing about the criminal activities on the 20th floor. When the operation ended, Carlos would lose his job and might even be investigated as a potential accomplice. Sarah Coleman, from Human Resources, was another person Mike interacted with regularly. She was kind to him, always asking about his well-being. When Mike seemed particularly sad after Maria's death, Sarah had offered him counseling services. "We care about our employees," she had said sincerely. "If you need someone to talk to, we're here." These genuine gestures of kindness made Mike's deception even more painful. These people weren't criminals, they were just working to make a living. In 2007, Mike finally gained access to the 20th floor. He had been promoted to senior janitor and could now enter every floor of the building. This was the turning point of the operation. What he discovered on the 20th floor exceeded even Maria's boldest estimates. This wasn't just a money laundering center, it was also the coordination center of an international crime network. Maps covering the walls showed operations in different countries. The 20th floor looked like a war room. Computer monitors displayed real-time financial transactions from around the world. Charts showed money flow routes through different countries. File cabinets contained detailed records of every illegal transaction. Mike began examining files on this floor during night shifts. He photographed documents with a small camera hidden in his cleaning supplies and copied files from computers using USB drives, concealed in soap dispensers. Each night he gathered a little more information. The scope of the operation was staggering. Fortuna wasn't just laundering money from local crimes, they were processing profits from Picus, from Dior drug cartels in Colombia and Mexico, arms dealers in Eastern Europe, human trafficking networks across 3 continents, cybercrime organizations in Russia and China, terrorism financing from various groups. When this information reached Maria, they realized they were solving one of the biggest cases in FBI history. The Fortuna network was a massive structure with operations not only in America, but also in Italy, Spain, France, and even Turkey and Russia. About $50 million were being laundered monthly. Money from all types of illegal activities was being cleaned through this network, making it one of the world's largest criminal financial operations. But with this discovery, The risk had also increased, because Vinnie Torino and his team were beginning to suspect there was a leak in the company. In early 2008, Mike noticed things were starting to go badly. Fortuna's security measures had been increased, new security cameras were installed, and employee movements began to be monitored more closely. Torino had become paranoid. He started conducting surprise meetings, checking employee backgrounds again, and installing listening devices in common areas. The comfortable atmosphere Mike had enjoyed for 3 years was disappearing. One day Mike learned that his locker had been searched. The security guard explained it as a routine check, but Mike understood this wasn't random. He was under suspicion. More troubling was the hiring of new security personnel. These weren't regular guards, they were former military and police officers with intelligence background. Mike recognized the signs. Torino was preparing for something. When Maria reported this situation to the FBI, ending the operation was discussed. But Mike said he needed just a few more months. Because the information he had wasn't yet enough to bring down the entire crime organization. Just a few more months, Mike pleaded. We can't give up after all these years. Maria also supported her husband. Mike is right, she told FBI executives. If we act now, we'll only catch Torino. But the international network will escape. The FBI decided to continue the operation for 6 more months. This decision would change everything. March 12, 2009. Thursday evening. Maria was returning home from the FBI office. Just 3 blocks from their home in Queens, her car tires were shot out. Maria was forced to stop. 2 men approached Maria's car. She immediately reached for her service weapon. But one of the men called out, FBI Agent Santos, we need to talk. Maria hesitated. These men knew her name and rank. She cautiously rolled down her window, keeping her hand on her weapon. Who are you? She demanded. We're associates of Mr. Torino, one man said. He knows about your husband. Maria's blood ran cold. Her FBI training kicked in. I don't know what you're talking about. The second man smiled coldly. Mike Russo, Fortuna Construction, 20th floor access. Should we continue? Maria realized their cover was blown. She reached for her radio to call for backup. But it was too late. The gunshots came before she could transmit. Maria's body was found the next morning. According to the police report, she had been killed by robbers. But the FBI knew this was a professional assassination. Mike received the news at the FBI office. His world collapsed. He had lost his wife, his best friend, his life partner. And it was because of the operation he was conducting. The FBI wanted to immediately remove Mike from the operation, but Mike refused. For Maria, he said, I'm going to catch her killers. At Maria's funeral, only FBI agents were present. No one knew Mike's real identity. During the funeral, Mike touched his wife's coffin and quietly swore, I'll find your killers, Maria. However long it takes, I'll ensure justice is served. The funeral was held at a small chapel in Queens. The FBI had arranged for a closed casket service, citing the violent nature of her death. Mike sat in the front row, holding Maria's FBI badge and her feta pen, the one she used to analyze financial documents. FBI Director Miller himself attended the service. Agent Santos died in the line of duty, he said. Her sacrifice will not be forgotten. But Mike knew the truth. Maria had died because they had gotten too close to Torino's operation. Her analytical brilliance had uncovered secrets that the crime boss couldn't allow to survive. From that day on, Mike changed. He was no longer just doing his job. He was fighting a personal war. After Maria's death, the operation had become even more critical, because if the network wasn't brought down, Maria's death would have been in vain. When Mike returned to Fortuna, employees noticed he had changed. He was quieter, more withdrawn. Human resources thought this was for personal reasons, and gave Mike a few days off. I heard about your loss, Sarah Coleman said sympathetically. If you need more time, work helps. Mike replied simply. It was true, staying in the lion's den kept him focused on his mission. This leave was a perfect opportunity for Mike. Together with the FBI, they investigated Maria's death. Before long they learned that this assassination had been carried out on Torino's orders. Maria had been so successful at unraveling the Fortuna network's financial records that Torino had become suspicious of her. By having Maria killed, he aimed both to sabotage the FBI's operation and intimidate other agents. The period from 2009-2019 was Mike's most difficult years. Every day he went to Fortuna and worked around his wife's killers. Every time he saw Vincent Torino, the desire for revenge ate at him inside. But he had to be patient. The psychological toll was immense. Mike developed insomnia, often lying awake at night, thinking about Maria. He started visiting her grave every Sunday, bringing fresh flowers and updates on the investigation. "I'm getting closer, Maria," he would whisper to her headstone. "Torino thinks he's safe, but I'm building a case that will bury him." During these 10 years, Mike solved all the secrets of the Fortuna network. He mapped every financial transaction, every international transfer, every shell company. The file he prepared for the FBI was thousands of pages long. He learned the organizational structure: Torino at the top, 5 lieutenants managing different regions, dozens of shell companies across multiple countries, hundreds of bank accounts in tax havens, a network of corrupt officials providing protection, but most importantly, he learned the identity of Maria's killers. The 2 men who carried out the assassination were Torino's trusted men: Tony the Fish Marconi and Roberto Silent Bob Fontana. Both were professional hitmen with long criminal records. Mike documented their movements, their habits, their associates. He knew where they lived, where they ate, where they felt safe. When the time came, there would be no escape. Throughout these 10 years, Mike never formed close relationships with anyone. His co-workers thought he was withdrawn and depressed. In reality, Mike was only focused on his mission. He turned down social invitations, avoided office parties, and kept all conversations strictly professional. Some colleagues worried about his mental health, but Mike deflected their concern. "I'm fine," he would say, "just prefer to keep work and personal life separate." The loneliness was crushing. Every evening, Mike returned to his empty apartment, ate a solitary dinner, and studied the files he'd gathered. The walls were covered with photos, documents, and connection charts, a shrine to his obsession with justice. By 2019, the FBI decided to end the operation. 15 years was long enough, and the information gathered from Mike was sufficient to bring down the crime organization. "It's time, Mike," his handler said. "We have enough for indictments." Mike nodded, but inside he felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. After 15 years of living a lie, he would finally return to his real life. But without Maria, what kind of life would that be? Before the final operation, Mike's intelligence had revealed the true scope of Fortuna's reach. The network extended far beyond New York. Italy, the original hub in Sicily, run by Torino's cousin Giuseppe. They processed money from traditional mafia activities and political corruption. Spain, a sophisticated operation in Barcelona, handling European drug money and art theft proceeds. Turkey, a newer branch in Istanbul, specializing in human trafficking funds and oil smuggling profits. Russia, connections to oligarchs moving dirty money through legitimate businesses. Colombia, direct partnerships with drug cartels, providing clean financial channels for cocaine profits. The FBI coordinated with international law enforcement agencies, Europol, Interpol, and national police forces in 7 countries prepared for simultaneous raids. It would be the largest coordinated strike against organized crime in history. Mike's intelligence had made it all possible. Without his 15 years of patient observation, the network would have remained hidden forever. November 20, 2019, Wednesday morning, the FBI launched simultaneous operations in America and Europe. In 7 countries, 23 cities, 56 people were arrested. In New York, the operation began at 6 a.m. FBI agents had surrounded the Fortuna construction building. Helicopters circled overhead while SWAT teams prepared to breach multiple floors simultaneously. Mike had come to work at 6 a.m. as usual that morning, but this time, in his cleaning cart were his 15-year FBI badge and Maria's photograph. As Vincent Torino was being arrested, Mike approached him. For the first time in 15 years, he revealed his true identity. "My name is Mike Russo," he told Torino. "I'm an FBI agent, and because you had my wife Maria Santos killed, I've been waiting 15 years for my revenge. Torino's face went white. The revelation that his trusted janitor was the source of his downfall was devastating. Impossible, Torino whispered. You're nobody. Maria Santos was somebody, Mike replied coldly, and today justice comes for her. The trials were held between 2020 and 2021. The evidence Mike had gathered was so detailed and conclusive that there was very little left for the defense. Vincent Torino received a life sentence for money laundering, organizing crime, and ordering murder. Tony Marconi and Roberto Fontana also received life sentences for killing Maria. During Torino's sentencing, the judge addressed Mike directly. Agent Russo, your sacrifice and dedication represent the best of law enforcement. Your wife would be proud. A total of 107 people received various sentences. The Fortuna network was completely dismantled. Assets worth $2.3 billion were seized. The FBI recorded this operation as the most successful undercover operation of the 21st century. Mike retired from the FBI after the operation. He was now 45 years old and had devoted 20 years to this case. The FBI awarded him the highest honor medal, but Mike only accepted it in memory of Maria. When details of the operation leaked to the media, there was great shock. Fortuna construction employees couldn't believe they had learned there had been an FBI agent among them for 15 years. Human resources manager Sarah Coleman told reporters, Mike was very quiet. He never talked to anyone, just did his job and left. Who could have known he was an FBI agent? We all thought he was just grieving his wife. If I had known what he was really going through. Jennifer Walsh from the accounting department. Sometimes I tried to talk to him but he looked very sad. We knew he had lost his wife so we left him alone. Now I realize we were seeing a man carrying an impossible burden. Security guard Carlos Rivera was devastated. Mike was a good man. We sometimes talked during night shifts. He helped me with my English, and I taught him Puerto Rican slang. I thought we were friends. Now I don't know what was real and what was acting. The most painful part was that most of Fortuna's employees were innocent people. They really thought they were working for a construction company. Only senior executives knew about the money laundering operation. After the operation, Mike moved to Florida. With Maria's ashes, he bought a small house by the beach. He was now living a quiet retirement. The house was simple but peaceful. Mike filled it with photos of Maria and mementos of their time together. He kept her FBI badge on the mantelpiece next to their wedding photo. But the FBI wanted to benefit from Mike's experience. Mike began teaching about undercover operations at the FBI Academy. He taught young agents the importance of patience and determination. Undercover work isn't just about lying, he would tell his students. It's about sacrificing your life for justice. And sometimes this sacrifice means losing your loved ones. Mike always carried Maria's photograph with him. Every year on the anniversary of Maria's death, he would go to Queens and visit her grave. In 2021, Mike published his book 20 Years of Silence, Memoirs of an FBI Agent. The book became a bestseller, and Mike donated the proceeds to foundations helping crime victims and families of fallen law enforcement officers. Mike Russo's story became legendary in FBI history. It was unique in terms of both the operation's length, the detail of information gathered, and personal sacrifice. The FBI Academy now teaches undercover operation techniques known as the Russo method. This is based on patience, detailed observation, and character consistency. The method includes DECO, long-term psychological preparation, complete identity immersion, emotional compartmentalization, mission-focused determination. But for Mike, the most important legacy was that Maria's revenge had been achieved. Justice sometimes comes late, he would tell his students, but it always comes. The Fortuna construction building is now used by the FBI's New York office. The basement floor, where Mike cleaned for 15 years, now serves as an archive section. Visitors entering the building can see the plaque in the lobby, in memory of Agent Maria Santos, martyred while serving justice. In memory of Agent Mike Russo, endured 20 years of silence for justice. Mike Russo's story teaches us this. True heroes are sometimes the quiet ones. Sometimes the strongest revenge is waiting patiently. And sometimes justice is achieved through years of sacrifice. The janitor, security guard, or ordinary worker you pass by every day might actually be someone who has dedicated their life to justice. Don't underestimate them, because the greatest heroism is performed by the quietest people. Mike Russo got revenge for his wife Maria, but more importantly, he prevented thousands of innocent people from becoming victims. This is true heroism. In 2023, Mike received a call from Carlos Rivera, his former security guard colleague. Carlos had started his own small business and wanted to thank Mike. "I understand now why you were so quiet," Carlos said. "You were carrying all of us on your shoulders, protecting us from something we didn't even know existed." Mike smiled for the first time in years. "That's what we do, Carlos. We protect the innocent." Today, Mike continues to visit Maria's grave every Sunday. He tells her about the students he's training, the operations that have been inspired by their work, and the criminals who have been caught using the methods they pioneered. "We did it, Maria," he whispers. "Justice was served." Have you ever known someone who hid their real identity? What did this story remind you of? Share in the comments, because stories like this should not be forgotten. And if this story moved you, subscribe, because we'll continue telling the stories of silent heroes. Every day, we share real security stories.